Good morning, YouTube. So I wanted to follow up on the previous video. So this is the other RepRap discount full graphic controller that I have. I think this was actually the one that came with the Rumba board. And you can see here I haven't flipped these two connectors, so they're still the way they're shown on the silk screen. And I just wanted to show you what happens here if you don't flip those connectors. So you can see I got the flashing LED there by the LCD connector and nothing on the screen, but you can see if I turn the coder knob there, I do get activity on that connector. This other display I had would sometimes flash the backlight when you hit the switch here, but I don't see that happening on this particular display, but that's what happens. You get nothing here. Now the amazing thing with these connectors, you can swap these side to side, put this connector in this location, put this one over here. You can turn them upside down and right side up, and it won't hurt this thing, because I've done every possible combination of those cables, and that's power and data coming over to power this device. And you cannot plug these in a fashion that actually damages this. So somebody's actually done some really clever design work to make these connectors basically foolproof. Now there's only 1 out of 4 possibilities that actually works, but the other 3 combinations of those 2 cables, they won't hurt anything. So I've swapped in the full graphics smart controller that I've flipped the 2 connectors on, and this one I think I have my final version of firmware loaded as far as supporting this device. So let me turn that on. I've got a boot screen, and then here's the Marlin screen, and we've got the SD card working. I got that compiled in, and then I've got the encoder direction corrected there. And I've added some additional menus here. So there's a bunch of menus that are optional in the Marlin firmware build. So you can get information here on the printer, what board, baud rate, all those sort of things. You get your thermistor information there. And let's see, let's go, yeah, there's the SD card. And we'll go temperature. And let's go down to fan speed. And now if I go clockwise, I increase the number there. But let's go up to the main screen. Yeah, and there you can see the little fan icon is spinning, and then it gives you the speed of the fan, pulse width modulation percentage. And then I've added some additional menus here. So I've got the home screen. This is part of the auto bed leveling code. You can do a manual bed leveling, and then I've gone in and adjusted my preheat parameters. These things will set the actual temperatures that I use for my printing setup, so you can customize these. So what I'll do is I'll go over and show you in the Marlin code in the Arduino IDE all the parameters that you can adjust for this. Okay, so I downloaded the Marlin firmware image from Type A machine, and if you go into that folder and open up the marlin.ino file, you get here to the 3D printer firmware, and that's the main project file, but the configuration changes that you want to do for the various display controllers are in this configuration.h file here, and that includes also all the settings for your printer electronics, temperature sensors, printer geometry, end stop configuration. So what I did initially is I just went down here and tried uncommenting some of these lines. So for example, there's the LCD. If we can go down there and find that,
So down here you can see where you select your LCD type. So the Ultra LCD includes all of these various alpha or character-based LCD screens, including the 20 by 4 that I had. What you're normally supposed to do is these pound define statements are commented out. So this configuration.h file has every possible combination of hardware that's ever been used on a 3D printer in it, but they're all commented out. And the idea is you uncomment by removing the two slashes. So to get the 20 by 4 screen, all I did was uncomment Ultra LCD and then uncomment the SD support definitions, and that included the 20 by 4 character support and the SD. But when you get into the graphics displays, there's a lot more options down here. So what I did to make that a little bit easier for me to understand was I added some of my own definitions. So what I did was I created these 5 different pound define statements, made a unique name. So I have one to enable SD support. There's one that enables the 20 by 4 LCD. I have another one that enables the full graphic controller definitions, and then I did another one here, the extra, which enables extra and menu features. So I've kind of tried to find all these extra little pre-programmed menus and things, so I'll show you some of those. And then I tried to also find this auto bed leveling code that Type A machines had enabled, and that way I can turn that code on and off. So with this, all I have to do is come up here and turn these things on or off. If I want to compile the 20 by 4 character LCD, I would just go up here, turn that on, turn that off, and now I have 20 by 4 LCD support. Okay, let's go down and I'll show you some of the areas where I added my code to insert the various options that I have here. So the first thing I did, I found this custom boot screen option where you can have a custom bitmap image displayed on your graphics controller when the machine first boots up. So I thought that'd be kind of neat. I'll show you how I did that a little bit later. And then here's some of the extra menus that I found. So there's this PID auto tune menu that you can put in there. And then here's another one. I don't know if this one actually compiles in or not, because this mesh bed leveling wasn't enabled by Type A machines. And then here was some of the auto bed leveling code that Type A machines put in there. So they use this auto bed leveling linear. And then they also enable this Z-safe homing. And then here were some extra things I added. The default preheat constants were 180 for PLA and 240 for ABS. I put in my own typical values. I typically use 220 on PLA with no bed heat and 250 and 90 degrees on the bed for ABS. And then here was the LCD character-based display. Ultra LCD is enabled right there. Here's the SD card support. That's enabled right there. And then if you come down here, this is where the graphics controller has some more fiddling that you have to do. You have to adjust the pulses per step, and I may need to change this again. And then there's also steps per menu item. This adjusts how sensitive the encoder dial is versus how the menus change. And then here's another one I found on my full graphics controller. The encoder direction was backwards from what all of the Marlin menu system is set up for. Here's the main place where you enable the RepRap Discount Full Graphics Smart Controller. Let's go down here. Here's one of my extra menu items. And I think that's basically the end here. There's about 1,500 lines in this configuration.h file. And I was getting confused myself trying to remember which things I had turned on, which things I had turned off. So that's why I came up here and just put 5 lines of code, and I can see exactly what I'm going to build right here. And then the last thing I did over here, here's my bootscreen.h file, and this is what you can put in to make your custom startup bitmap. And then what you do is this custom start BMP is your custom boot screen here, and it's just a bunch of binary data, 128 by 64 bits monochrome image. And the way I made that was I came over here and I downloaded the Type A machines logo off their website. Then I believe I converted it to black and white, but it comes up with black text on a white background. And then I took that black on white image and inverted it to make a white on black. And then I came over to this website. I'll put a link to this in the video description. It's called Byte Array Maker, and you just browse your image here, load it into the program. There's your image preview, and then you just copy and paste everything in this code window. Yeah, and one thing to watch out for when you do copy and paste out of this byte array output is you don't want these first 3 lines of code. You just want this binary strings, and you also don't want that last close parentheses. So what you want to do is copy this out of the file, and then you come back over here to the bootscreen.h file, and you'll notice that these parameters up here are different, as well as the variable name. So what you want to do is just copy and replace all of the binary strings here. And you don't have to do that, but I thought it was kind of a neat thing to do. So anyway, that's how I built the Marlin firmware. And then the only other thing you need to do is you've got to make sure you're using an Arduino Mega 2560. So that's what's on the Rumba board that I'm using. I think that's the same if you're using a ramps board. And then you have to set the port to match whatever port the Arduino gets mapped to. And then you can compile the image and load it onto your Rumba board in my case. And I showed you how I did that in the previous videos. If anyone's interested, is I can probably upload this file to my Google Drive page, as well as the bootscreen.h file. You probably won't want to use this configuration.h file because it's got all the parameters for the Type A machines printers, and those are probably different than your printer. But if you want to look and see what sections of code I looked at and enabled and commented in or out, you can just look at these pound defines, and you can use those if you want. I just found this was a lot easier to keep track of what I was doing rather than try to remember 50 places in the code where I had made changes. Just a lot easier to look at. And then I'll try to put a copy of this bootscreen.h file up there too if you want to have a look at that. So yeah, if you have any questions about that, post up in the comments section down below, and I'll put some of the other videos over here on the left side you might be interested in. And as always, thanks for watching.